Welcome back to Built to Ship, the podcast where we go behind the scenes with founders and product leaders shipping real AI products and features into the world. I'm excited to be joined by Abhi, co-founder of Rubbarband, an AI platform that helps creatives turn scripts into storyboards and visual sequences in minutes. Abhi, it's great to have you.
Thanks for having me, Tyler. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, why don't we start with your background? What were you doing before Rubbarband? Where'd you get the idea? And I know we were just chatting before we went live about the story of what you explored before in the product. You had a consumer app, and now you're transitioning the product and business. I think the audience would love to hear about that.
Yeah, 100%. Well, before starting Rubbarband, I was actually a grad student. I was researching in the machine learning space, and me and my two roommates, we just do stuff for fun. We'd make fun projects, and we started off like with this random music project, and then became images and videos. And the next thing you know, we were enjoying that way more than we did for research, and that became a whole company. So we started this about like 3 years ago, and here we are now.
Amazing. And how many co-founders do you have? And you all met at school, or?
Yeah, so I have two co-founders. We were all like studying computer science at Berkeley, and that's where we met on like the first day at orientation, actually.
Amazing. Well, yeah, tell us a bit more about the, how Rubbarband started. Sounds like you were, you mentioned you're playing around with building, but was it that you heard like a pain from people you talked to and you're like, oh, we should build a product for this? Or did you have the product idea first and then went in search of a market?
Yeah, 100%. Our first idea was actually in a space that we do nothing in anymore. So I myself, I'm a singer, and one of my co-founders is a pianist, and the other one also plays the piano, and we used to jam all the time together. And we were like, hey, let's build something for all of our friends too, where we can like record our jam sessions, and it can like report back to us whether like, we're rushing, slowing down, on pitch, things like that. And we built this thing. And then we realized we couldn't make money off of this thing. So we were like, okay, let's choose like some kind of like vertical where like we could maybe make a business on, and that became images and video. And that's how we got started.
Amazing. And what was the first idea in the image and video space?
Yeah, so we started off with kind of fine-tuning these state-of-the-art video models. This is back when like Stable Diffusion was just out, and there was this huge fad on like trying to make like these animated versions of things, like these different stylistic versions of different images. And based off that idea, we created a consumer app where you could basically generate images in customized styles through workflow building. So that was our first major idea that we worked on for a long time.
Awesome. And tell us a bit more about, going to market with that product. Any metrics you can share around users or how they used it,
Yeah, 100%. So for that product, we actually grew it to a couple hundreds of thousands of users. And on dailies, we had about like at its peak, a little over a few tens of thousands maybe. So what that product was about was actually we focused on how to make images and videos in like these very specific styles. And sometimes, let's say you ironed out a style, you want all of your subsequent images to be in the exact same style. So we called those workflows, and you'd build these like node graphs to create these workflows that would keep dumping images in this particular style. And companies liked it, ad agencies liked it, stuff like that. Over time, we made it more and more simple. So we started moving more and more towards like a chat interface too.
Awesome. And what was that process like? Did you find that people like immediately the chat interface was easier, or were there things where you felt like, oh, maybe buttons are better than, chatting back and forth?
Yeah. So what we found is with the chat interface, we got a whole new set of users. That's probably what sparked like the ridiculous amount of growth we had on our consumer app. Before that, it was all very technical users, a lot of comfy UI users, which is like this highly specific workflow building thing. And we found that when we opened up our chat interface, there's a lot of like beginner users who could like kind of be hobbyists and play around with the app. But we'd also find that when people started getting more into the weeds and wanted to make more complicated things, inevitably they'd move on to our workflow builder. So it was pretty good as like a funnel into that too.
Awesome. That's really exciting and impressive to get that kind of growth. Do you think like it was the right place at the right time? Was it your marketing strategies? What do you think kind of captured that?
I think what was really cool is we kind of coincided with the taking off of Comfy UI, which is now like a really big product. And a lot of people had this problem where they couldn't run Comfy UI properly on their infrastructure on their computer. And they want an online version of this. And that's kind of like what we did, except you didn't need to know all of like these complicated like math things that sometimes you need to know to make Comfy really good. We simplified everything for us.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And you mentioned ad agencies as like one of the users. Was that the main use case, or did you narrow it down, or was it pretty broad, like what people could use the platform for?
Yeah, great question. So we started off with a pretty generalist platform, and over time, what we started doing is we started focusing increasingly more so on ad agencies in Hollywood. And what that led to was kind of like a shift in the same product to just work for those use cases. So that's what our focus was for a while too.
Amazing. Yeah. Oftentimes a founder journey experience of like, okay, we thought we were being specific, but we actually need to niche down more and really nail like a specific part of the market. Is that kind of what you guys were thinking?
That's exactly right. Yeah, and that kind of triggered a whole year of kind of with us working in Hollywood, where we basically did pre-visualization. What that means is like, so in Hollywood, there's a script. Very oftentimes they pretty much will always create a shot list for the script. And sometimes they will even create an animatic, which is kind of like, you can think of like the initial video form of what the final production video is going to look like. And what we focused on was going from like script to animatic, all using AI. So we did that for a whole year. Yeah.
Wow. And any interesting Hollywood stories you could share from kind of that time? Did you go like out in person to these ad agencies in Hollywood, or was it mostly remote? Were you still based in
Oh
Berkeley?
yeah. We went in person to a lot of places. Like we went to LA a bunch of times. I think the coolest places I went was I was on set for the Devil Wears Prada 2. That happened
Wow.
pretty recently this year. That was really cool. Sesame Street, really fun.
That's awesome.
And a lot of different places in LA, like MGM and stuff like that. I think one common theme is I think there's an increasing amount of interest in AI from Hollywood, and it's actually slowly being used in production too. The one difficulty, of course, with Hollywood is everything is high quality. And what that means is like all of your AI outputs have to be like near perfect. So that took a lot of work from us. Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah. It sounds like, is that maybe why you focused first on what you were sharing about like I forget the term, but like
Pre-visualization. Yes, that's exactly right. We kind of thought, okay, since like AI isn't quite at the standard where we want to put something on a Netflix show just yet, we can do pre-visualization so that like directors can see their show before they actually go and shoot it. So that's how we started there.
And who were the main users and folks you worked with? It sounds like director was maybe a key stakeholder, but did you need to work with other teams to kind of get the shot info, etc., or is it mainly just for like directors?
Yeah, so we worked very heavily with the directors and directors of photography. Sometimes we'd also have like set designers on there too, because we would allow you to basically bring in the character that you want with image references, bringing the costumes, the sets, all of these things with references, and we'd make these really cool storyboards and animatics for you. So all of these people could show up on our platform, drag their assets in, and then the director of photography can create whatever images that they want to.
Awesome. So you mentioned before the show as well that you're starting to see more and more demand from, I'm going to assume it's these Hollywood studios and ad agencies for service, beyond just the platform you've built. Can you share a bit more about that?
Yeah. So what we started finding in Hollywood and ad agencies is like a lot of them, when they would use the product, they would find, hey, like this product is pretty good and we're able to generate a bunch of like images and videos, but they don't look perfect and we're not sure how to get there. And what the reason behind that is because like AI is especially like images with AI can be produced very easily, but the most important thing is being able to curate for the right things. And I think because of that, we found that if we supply them with the actual full video asset, they're much happier and they're very impressed. So we're like, okay, since we're very good at making these assets, let's actually just do that as a service. And what it's slowly become for our company is we actually sell marketing videos and ads directly to companies. So not just in Hollywood now. We do it for a lot of tech companies. We do a lot of launch videos, marketing ads, things like that.
Amazing. Do you have any thoughts so it sounds like there's a lot of, you spend so much time like building these things yourself, working with customers, design partners, you build this expertise that other people may not have. I see a bit of a parallel to what we've done at Voker, and that we work across so many different verticals. There's so many different use cases. You probably get a lot of different experience that someone building, at one company might not have, the expertise or have run into that issue before. Do you have any plans to maybe one day, it sounds like you guys are part of the engine that's used to build this stuff. Do you think eventually that's something you could incorporate back into a platform or a product? Where it's like, hey, all these learnings we have about how to either write the prompts or configure the models, is that something that you think can be made programmatic, or do you think it actually will always be something that's more of a service?
Yeah, 100%. I think a lot. So what we're finding is like we write software, a lot of it. And every single time we write a bit of software, our creative flows become much faster because we know that there's certain themes. Like, for example, the first time we made this like service style ad end to end, we took a look at like what we were doing again and again and again. Some things that we're doing again and again and again were like dropping the exact same assets as character references, looking up on like different like places like Pinterest online for like good image reference visuals so that we can like figure out what we want in our ads. So we're baking all of that into our software product, which is still available. And I think although we can get a lot of it optimized using this, I think there still does need to be a human at the end of the process to curate. But I mean, with software, I mean, like the limitations are not that like, I feel like the possibilities are endless. You can do a lot more and create like several times orders of magnitudes on like the outputs that you can make manually.
Definitely. Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, there's still a lot of places where human taste matters, and that's a good reminder. And I think a key with building AI systems is figuring out when and where you need to input that human taste. You don't want to ask, let's say, a customer support agent. You have an AI system. Sometimes you need to hand it over to a human. You don't want it to hand over every single question, otherwise it defeats the purpose. But there might be some where you want to bring a human in, and I assume there's analogies.
And that's exactly right. So another interesting thing that we build internally is like we first build like these style matcher things where like my co-founder is a huge movie buff, and he's always looking for like, hey, what are good like inspirations that I can take from like this idea. So we've built something for him to like quickly link like several different ideas he's thinking into like works that have been done, so that he's able to like spark his mind. So we've done that. Even in terms of like the images we generate, there's all of like these specific flows that we do, like object replacement, like facial, like emotion changing, all of these things that we built into our interface so that it's much faster. And of course, with AI, you need to do a lot of generations because like the first one's going to be kind of bad. So we also like bake in optionality through the agents that we create. So every request will like trigger like 10 different generations that have slight variations of each other, and then we can choose the best one out of those.
Amazing. Yeah, it sounds like you're blending automation with, taste in very specific ways. You mentioned that you have been doing this since like the early days of like stable diffusion and video generation models. What are you guys using today? And do you use like text generation models or speech generation as well? Or is it mostly just image and video? Is there a way that you make them interplay?
Yeah, so we can talk a little bit about that. That's a bit of a longer question. So basically, we have a long process. So let's talk first about a little bit of what we did with Hollywood here. So they give us a script, and we would basically break down this entire script, figure out all the characters, all the objects, figure out what kind of shots look good, and then from there we would create our storyboards and videos. So to actually do all these
to interrupt you real quick there, when you say figure out the characters and the objects, are you doing like a human is reading through the script and deciding that, or do you have an LLM, like a text LLM, read through the script, or what?
Yeah, so we were primarily using Claude to do this. So we wrote like this whole graph of how to like split this text up well using like PDF parsing and things like that. And we use Claude to analyze each section and join all of them together to get all the components that we want.
Great.
After that, we'd use that to generate the shot list. And at that point, we would start bringing our image models in. So we use a mixture of like OpenAI's models as well as like Google's like Nano Banana models. And then for generating video, we'd use like the VO models, the Kling models, things like that. So that's what we did for Hollywood. And now that we're doing this as a service, the way we work now is the only difference is we write that starting script and we're able to use all of this, the exact same flow pretty much, except at the end, when we get our images and videos, we work on it a lot more and make sure it's perfect. That's kind of the only difference now.
Amazing. And when it comes to, either the previous, product, which I know is still live, or this new service, um, how much of this is like something that you or your users are kind of setting and forgetting? Like they need to run across like 20 or 100 or thousands of scripts or something like that, or whatever their prompts are, if it's, the non-Hollywood product? Or is it mostly like one-offs where people are like really paying attention to every step?
Yeah, good question. I feel like, so in the process of making an ad, that process in itself has both of these things in it. So let's talk about what it is in an ad, right? So an ad has like maybe 20 shots, and each one of those shots will have like images and videos, right? So at a macro scale, we're only making one ad at a time because they're very high quality ads versus like the easy UGC type ads. But within the ad, now when you're focusing on one shot, you need to like run a bunch of different variations of images on this one shot and then curate at the end. So that aspect is probably going to be like a set and forget, let Rubbarband run, do its thing, generate a bunch of different images for you, and then you go in and curate it. And then you'll do the same thing for video again.
Great. Awesome. Yeah, it's been super fascinating learning about the process there. We're getting close on time, but the last thing I want to ask is, do you have any interfaces where the users are having conversations with an agent, like back and forth to say, edit this, edit that? Or is it mostly like buttons, what work, and like kind of a workflow builder? Essentially, like what's the UX you found that works the best? Because you can put, AI in a chat interface, or you can put it behind the scenes and people might not even know that it's happening in the background.
Yeah, so for us, what we do is we allow you to generate the images and then edit those images. Usually entirely that will be done through AI. You'll prompt basically for how you want to edit a certain image. And in the background for us, we will take a look at the image, take a look at your prompt, translate it into what we think you really meant, and then we will actually run the edit using an edit model. So that's our agent on that side. And on the script writing side, what we do internally is like after the script has been written out, we'll obviously like diagnose the right parts of the script and things like that using our agent.
Great. Yeah, maybe my last question is, a lot of folks are finally getting agents into production. As much as they've marketed that they've done it, even big companies are, they've promised, oh, we're building 200 agents. And, turns out they've only like deployed one of them. It just takes longer than they expect. As someone who actually has had like a conversational agent or a prompt-based agent in production, do you have any tips or tricks for folks listening in as they get theirs into production? How do you monitor and make sure it works? Because everyone's doing offline evals, they're testing it out themselves, right? All the good product sort of approaches. But once it gets into the hands of the customers, chat interfaces are a lot more complex. People can ask anything. They could ask about the weather, even if it's not what the tool's for. Did you run into any challenges around that? Do you have any fixes for how you monitored what people were doing and if the agent was working as expected?
100%. I think one thing that we struggled with in the early days for a consumer app agent was this agent was so general and people could ask it whatever the hell they wanted to. And what that results in is like a billion different questions. You can't really test for any of these things. So I think what we did is we tried to kind of like niche our agent towards like a certain set of like user questions that would make sense for it to respond to. So like kind of like set a certain topic that worked really well for our agent. And I think our performance improved very significantly there. What was harder was doing these evals at a large scale. We had like obviously this database that we keep incrementing like and randomly sampling from like the conversations that we're seeing to make sure that our agent is responding well. But one thing that we also did, which was very time-staking but very worthwhile, was we used to look into our post-hog recordings from our users. So we used to actually see what people are like, why failures are getting triggered by this agent. So we'd obviously get emails sent to us whenever like some error happened, and then we'd go ahead and watch the recording and see what exactly happened with our LLM. It was a time-consuming process, but the bright side is usually when you find one of those mistakes, you just solved like 100 others for other users. So a lot of work at the start, but good payoffs.
Amazing. Yeah, it's a great example of doing things that don't scale as a founder and really being close to your users by actually like putting yourself in their shoes. I'd love to keep chatting. You've got some great insights from the many years you've spent in the industry here, but we're close on time, so I want to put your website up on the screen. Maybe you can share how can folks get in contact to the right people to be leveraging the services of Rubbarband. Yeah, share with the audience.
Yeah, for sure. So right now, what we've been focusing on as a service is producing highly cinematic, like Nike, Apple-esque ads for companies. And pretty much, if you want to get contacted, if you want to get in touch with us, you can head over to rubbarband.com, scroll to the bottom, just shoot us a quick email with what exactly you're trying to do and how we can help you generate your next cool ad.
Amazing. And any specific types of companies that you'd work with? Is it vertical specific or size, or do you need like, video editors on their team or not?
Yeah, so we do this end to end. We usually work with companies that are either like have like really big B2C things, so like they have a lot of customers at scale, or they have like B2B companies that are launching like software style products. We really focus on telling stories. So we find really cool ways of like inserting a product into like some situation that is just really attention grabbing, and that's how we roll.
Amazing. Well, thanks again for your time, Avi. It's been great talking, and looking forward to following along and watching what you guys keep building as you continue to grow.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Tyler. It was great chatting.
Bye now.